Hello and welcome to the LFC transfer room. My name's Tino. I'm thankfully joined by three beautiful guys today, Richie, Owen and Matty. Very, very difficult day today for most Liverpool fans after the atrocious performance and result against Manchester United. It's gutting to see. It really takes it out of you on the day. But we've got a lot to cover. So we will jump straight into it. Richie, how's it going, mate? How's your day been? Is it been as bad as mine?
I have managed to avoid Twitter all day, the radio all day, and the telly all day, as to not be reminded of yesterday's horrendous defeat to Manchester United. It's never nice to lose to Manchester United at all, but you can take it if you play well. But it's the fact that we didn't play well and we didn't deserve anything from that game, unfortunately. So yeah, it's not been a great day. Luckily, I'm working a school, so the students aren't giving me the stick that they definitely would have had I been in school. So no, not a great day. It's never nice. And, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. I'm sure no one else wants to hear it, but it's one of those things that you've got to analyse. You've got to take the rough with the smooth because we're Liverpool and we'll come back from it, hopefully. And, it's been a pretty shit day today, but I'm sure there's many good days to come.
Yeah, indeed. Owen, how's it going? We talked about on the match previews for the Crystal Palace game and the match preview for the United game about a response to the previous disappointing results. Is this just another thing we're going to be talking about for the foreseeable future? We need a response to a disappointing result. Is there anything we can do to try and combat that in the short term? You're muted. You're muted, dude.
Oh, never mind. Poor start already. But what can you say? I hope it's not a recurring trend. Me and you on the preview. I don't think it's something that should happen going forward again. Put it like that, because it's not been great luck so far. But yeah, hopefully a Bournemouth next at home. It's the ideal game, isn't it, to get the first win of the season, and fourth game of the season. Not many of us would have predicted it would be the first win, or potentially the first win. So it's not a great time right now to be a Liverpool fan, unfortunately. But yeah, we have to take the rough with the smooth, of course.
Yes, indeed. Matty, talk about that Bournemouth game going forward. We've got a preview coming up soon as well on Friday. This, as Owen said, is the ideal game to try and get back on the right track. A team that have been very, very poor so far this season. They haven't really brought in any decent-ish players. Nobody who really stands out. Is there any other team you'd look at and think, I want them as the next game, or is it just Bournemouth are the key?
I want to forget last night as quickly as possible, to be honest with you. Being locked in the ground for an hour afterwards as well, stupid. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go out for it, throwing windmills after we've been beat. It's ridiculous. So we're the only away ground in the league that does that as well. But yeah, all focused to Bournemouth, to be honest with you. Quite confident with that. But then I said that before Fulham, so we'll see what Liverpool turns up. The only thing that's worrying me really is just seems like the mentalities went a little bit with the side in the opening games this year. They just don't seem to, like Liverpool. You could be getting beat 1-0 and you'd still think we're going to come and win this game 2-1, even like the 80th minute. When we scored yesterday to make it 2-1 United, not one part of me thought we're going to get a draw here, because the mentality just seems to be shot, and I don't know why. It's weird to see this Liverpool side. I know everyone wants a midfielder and stuff, but this Liverpool side, bar Darwin Núñez, is ultimately the same side that took us to every final last year. Had the amazing mentality, win at all costs, and then they've started this season and it just seems like it's shot, and that worries me a lot. But it's got to be all focused on Bournemouth, to be honest. You can't spend too many days moping around about results, or you get yourself into a horrible spiral like Roy Hodgson put us all in a few years ago. It can't be that bad. I'm still believe we'll win the league. I'm bitter and twisted, and it probably does everyone's head in.
Yeah. You've got to be, from my perspective, you've got to be confident in terms of going forwards. I feel like if I was just completely negative, I'd just go down in a spiral and I wouldn't leave my house at all. Richie, Matty's talked about the mentality. The mentality side of it from the game is a huge, huge thing. By the end of that game, I wasn't really concerned about the result. I was more concerned about the performance and whether we actually looked like we cared. That's a huge issue going forward. What do you think is the ideal solution? Do you think Klopp's got him in today and has given him absolute rollicking, or is there another solution to that mentality? Where's it gone?
I don't know. I think probably playing every game that there was available to play last year with the same team, as Matty said, has not helped because they do look shattered. We've had a shorter pre-season with a pretty painstaking tour to Asia crammed in there for a pre-season too. And these players don't look like they're ready to go, do they? We had that moment in the Community Shield where it looked like they were at it. But that might have just been running on adrenaline. You don't know. No, none of those players had won the Community Shield. Maybe they're like, oh, we've done this and this is a set, and that's what they're running on. There's no reason why Liverpool should start slow. This is now the 7th consecutive game where Liverpool have conceded first. And it's bonkers. Andy Robertson said it yesterday. We can't keep on affording to give teams a 1-0 head start. And that's exactly what Liverpool are doing at the moment. And it is bizarre because you see Van Dijk, not rushing out, and you see Milner sliding all that way, and Milner getting up and rightly so, giving Van Dijk what for? Because Van Dijk standing on that line. I know there's been several quite amusing memes going around today about it, but that isn't the Virgil van Dijk that we know. And Carragher was right afterwards to say, like, you need to put your body on the line. Jamie Carragher was the best. I know it doing that. And I'm not saying that Carragher is a better centre-back than Van Dijk, by far from it. But that's what centre-backs do. You saw Varane and Lisandro Martinez last night. They were animals at the back. Now, you'd expect that from Van Dijk. Gomez, bit rusty. Let's be kind and say he's a bit rusty. He's never really been able to play the high line, in my opinion. He perhaps needs to either switch his brain on for 90 minutes or Liverpool don't play that high line when Gomez plays, because you just can't play it. And then it puts all of the rest of the 3 out of position. It makes the other 3 look bad. But Robertson hit it on the head when he said, we're just not coming out the traps fast enough. And they're not. What did Liverpool expect last night? It's Manchester United. They've just come off the back of an absolute battering at Brentford and a battering at Brighton as well. And all of the uproar around the Glazers and everything else that's gone with it. Did they not expect an absolute cauldron last night? I'm sure Matty will be able to allude to this a little bit later as well. But from where I was sitting in my living room, it seemed like that atmosphere perhaps even got to Liverpool, which is mental, because Liverpool at Anfield, that's what we do to other teams. And it looks like those players were just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like they weren't expecting a derby, like they weren't expecting it to be Old Trafford, that it wasn't expecting it to be that intense and ferocious. But Liverpool do need to look at themselves at some point. I know it's 3 games in. I don't want to sound pessimistic, and I'm certainly not writing Jurgen Klopp et al.'s obituaries, but they have to start quicker and they have to switch on, because yes, they created more shots last night, or they had more chances than Manchester United, but Manchester United probably could have been 3 or 4 if I'm honest. And when Salah scored that goal, no part of me at all thought Liverpool were going to get one here, because that Salah goal, it was very, very well taken, but it wasn't as if we would keep on knocking on the door. We kept knocking on the door. I thought that Man United would probably get in behind again, and they did with Martial. And if it wasn't for Ali, I don't know if the offside flag went up, but if it wasn't for Ali, it would have been 3. So something isn't quite right. Whether they are mentally drained from last season, whether they're burnt out, whether it is 6 or 7 seasons, some of them under the same manager, under the same gang and pressing system, some of their legs might have gone. Imagine running for 6 years non-stop. It needed a refresh in the summer. We said that it needed it up front primarily, and we were happy when Núñez came in. That it needs it in that midfield, because you cannot, and I know injuries have played their part, and yes, injuries are massive. You cannot rely on a 36-year-old James Milner. You cannot rely on Henderson to be playing every single 90 minutes. It has to have a refresh, and something had to have happened this season. I wouldn't have even minded if we had a transition season. I said, do you know what? probably not going to get the title this season. But what we are going to do is we're going to bring in a couple of young players and we're going to transition them because they're going to be our players who are going to run for the next 6 years rather than having to rely on the same Liverpool legends, time and time again. It's not helpful having to rely on these players. And I feel bad for Milner and Henderson because I'm pretty sure they would not be expecting to play the minutes that they're expecting to. But with all of the injuries that we've got, what else is there?
Yeah. Owen, there's a lot to unpack from Richie's from what Richie just
sorry,
said.
mate. I ranted. That was like 24 hours nearly of like pent up frustration. Sorry.
Don't worry one bit. What has been thrust about a lot is that starting game slowly, as Richie said, that the start of 7 games in a row we've conceded first. It's awful. As Richie mentioned, it could be we're bent out. It could be we're just deflated after a long season last season and the back end of it not going our way. What do you look at that squad and think at that performance and think we deserved that result? Because Jurgen Klopp came out afterward and said, we could have won. I don't know what game he was watching, but it clearly wasn't the same one I was. Are you in the same lines as me and seemingly the rest of the guys?
Yeah, we definitely didn't deserve to win that game. By no means did we deserve to win it. And then Klopp's come out in the media and said certain things, but I think it's kind of mainly to me what he's saying to the players, because who really cares what he's saying to the media? What he's actually saying to the players is what is important and what going forward is going to improve things. And I can't lie, people coming at Klopp, blaming Klopp for certain things, it's really, really annoyed me and made me angry, because people forget what Klopp's done over the last few years for the club. And in the case of a season, or I know there's 2020, 2021, where things didn't go our way. And so far, it's 3 games. But yeah, it hasn't been ideal. Don't come after Klopp. Don't blame him for this, because ideally, you go and sign a midfielder this summer. Did Klopp, was that his decision? Who knows? And I don't think it was by any means, because if you're telling me FSG, John W. Henry is going to Klopp saying, oh yeah, here's Jude Bellingham, here's Nicola Barella, and Klopp's going, nah, I'm good. I don't want any signings. I don't want a midfielder. I'm totally good. Then if you believe that, then you're deluded. I'm sorry, but I think that's what's happening. And yeah, it's just really frustrating to see that already with a few bad results, people forgot what Klopp's done for this club, and he's a saviour. He saved this football club and won the first Premier League, won the Champions League. So don't come after Klopp. But yeah, I think some of the decisions he's made, you can question him on for sure. Not starting Fabinho. I don't know what that was about. Although he has looked just lacklustre and run into the ground over the few weeks. So you can understand in an ideal world why you don't start Fabinho, but at the same time, you haven't got anyone else, have you really? So Jordan Henderson, James Milner, I've defended them for a very long time, and will continue to do so, because I think they've been so good for the club, and I still think they've got a future at the club, but just maybe is a bit more of a backseat. But yeah, I've seen Harvey Elliott. He was unbelievable last night, and you can see going forward, he's going to play a massive role at the club. Fabio Carvalho as well has to start against Bournemouth, no question about that.
Yeah. You talk about Klopp, and it's not just Jurgen's fault. There's a lot of different combinations of players that really have to. Factors that really have to take the blame for the poor start to the season, whether it is the players, whether it is the staff and Klopp, whether it is FSG. Matty, do you agree with that sentiment? Is Jurgen as much as he has to admit mistakes sometimes with Fabinho not starting? Do you look at that and think it's just a combination of different factors, including the hectic preseason schedule and injuries and not bringing anybody in? Or is there really one key moment and issue from the start of the season that you look at that can pinpoint all of these problems?
Firstly, I agree with Klopp. Liverpool should have won the game last night. Liverpool, I've just looked to get exact figures We had 71% possession. And Haley or robbed me comments. You literally just said it as I was about to say it. 71% possession we had with 17 shots. 5 on target it was, Haley, or not 6, according to Opta. Which is even worse. The fact we've had 17 shots and only 5 on target is showing that we're not finishing our chances. We should have won. Rashford's goal, I'd probably say it's offside, but then there's the new rules, so sod them new rules. But that's what sad. That exact Rashford thing was exactly where Sadio Mane was ruled offside against Everton. It's the exact same, exactly the same. So just make it make sense. But Liverpool should have won yesterday. The atmosphere shocked the team. It shocked me, to be honest with you. They were meant to be protesting and walking out, but no one got off. They were all stood there in this year's kit with the yellow and green scarves on. Like, they're just idiots, you know what I mean? But the atmosphere there last night is the best I've ever been in Old Trafford for their atmosphere. It was pumping. It really was pumping. And fair play to the fans, to be honest. Fair play to their fans. But Haley made another comment about Jim Moxon left this year. And look how many injuries we've had already. He was our club doctor, and we haven't replaced him. We have not got an official club doctor there. We've got, like Haley said, 2 people sharing the role. I wouldn't say I'm deluded either. Don Ellis, the stats would say Liverpool should have won last night. We were not good enough. That's what I'm saying. We never finished our chances. I'm not saying that we bastard United because we didn't. But the fact we had 17 shots and only managed 5 on target is worrying. And then also Klopp, I think, because of what he's done for us, does not then make him subject to no criticism. It's fair enough to hold your hands up and say you got it wrong last night. Fabinho probably should have started, because playing Henderson in that 6 when Henderson himself it didn't start the Palace game because apparently he had a knock. I wouldn't have started him in that game. And there was another thing someone said that I was going to bring up as well. Transfer committee. I'm not saying I'm in the know or something, but someone who I really, really trust did tell me that our scouting team actually put Matheus Nunes to Klopp, and it was Klopp who said no. Klopp didn't want him. So if Klopp doesn't want someone, Liverpool aren't going to buy him. And the person who said this to me, I do trust. They're the ones who told me about the Salah deal days before and stuff. I trust them. And apparently Klopp didn't want Nunes. I don't know why, but that's why we didn't get him. But I do think that Klopp has accepted we need a midfielder now, and I do think that one will come in.
The issue with bringing in a midfielder is, for me, I don't think it's likely. I don't look at. I think Klopp, as he says, accepted it. He's hinted a few times that he's unhappy with his squad and that he wants to bring in at least 1 or 2 new faces. Richie, do you look at this? If a midfielder doesn't come in, is it time for Liverpool to maybe switch up the way we play? Is it too drastic a change? Is it time to maybe switch to the 4-2-3-1 has been sort of bandied about a lot since the start of the season, since Nunes came in? Is that something we should maybe be looking at due to the injury issues?
Yeah, I think I was really surprised actually that during pre-season it's a system that wasn't trialed out, because Darwin Núñez looks like a real front runner. He's not that Firmino false nine dropping deep. We saw Firmino play centre midfield. We actually saw in the first half play far deeper than James Milner last night. James Milner was almost, in that false 9 role because Firmino was so deep. Núñez won't do that. You're not going to get that from Darwin Núñez. So I thought that perhaps we would flip up the system a little bit, and that's why we wasn't bringing in a midfielder, because we had 9 midfielders at the start of the season. You could debate their quality. That's not what we're talking about right now, for 3 positions. So I figured, well, if we do have this crisis, then maybe 9 isn't enough for 3 spots, but maybe he's going for 2, and then he can play in that 10 role. Firmino, he obviously played there for Hoffenheim behind Darwin Núñez, played Carvalho there, who was sensational in the Championship last season. You can play Curtis Jones there too. So actually there's 3 positions again for that 10 role. So that double pivot wasn't every pre-season friendly I watched, and I was like, I wonder if it's going to be the double pivot. I wonder who's going to be beside Fabinho. Is it going to be Thiago? Is it going to be Henderson? And it never happened, and it never transpired that was the system. And again, this is perhaps coming to where Klopp should come into criticism, because he is too stubborn to change the way in which he plays. We saw it at Dortmund as well. He's far too stubborn to change his personnel because he thinks they've done it for one season, they can do it for another. his system is always 4-3-3. We haven't really seen too much. We've sometimes seen him play like a 4-2-4 when we're chasing the game. But I would love to see a 4-2-3-1. It makes the most sense now because we are limited in our midfield. You have Carvalho, who looked lively last night, if I'm honest. He looked quite good. I don't think you'll have too much risk there if you're going to play Carvalho or Firmino, who does look off the ball at the minute in a 10 role, and you're taking a little bit less pressure off Firmino because his game is that he wants to drop deep. You can see that. You saw it last night. He wants the ball. He comes like almost as an 8 role last night to come and get the ball because he wasn't getting it up top. So, he could play in that 10-2, and I'd love to see Nunez just literally stick on that last line of that shoulder, and bully those defense like we know that he can do. I would be a big advocate of the 4-2-3 when it doesn't feel like that is on Klopp's agenda at all, because if it was, I would have thought we'd try it in pre-season at least for 45 minutes. The fact that we didn't, I think after 3 games, people will be questioning Klopp, to the moon and back if he now changed the system after 3 games. And yes, 3 games that were poor, but he's stubborn and he's not going to change that. And yes, he should be criticised for that when things aren't going right. You do have to evolve because you evolve or perish. I would love to see a 4-2-3-1. I don't think we will. I also don't think that we'll see another midfielder because, again, for the same reasons that we've said, although, we did bring in Kabak and Ben Davis on the final day in January when we did desperately need a centre-back. So, it could happen. I just don't think it will. But no, the 4-2-3-1, absolutely 100% takes the pressure off Hendo because you got Fabinho next to him. Thiago can absolutely play there. Your ideal would be Thiago and Fabinho, wouldn't it, as your double pivot? But then also Thiago's your Rolls Royce, your luxury player. He's not going to be able to play every game. So again, Henderson can come in. Milner could play in the 6 if Fabinho's leading him too. So, it's certainly a really good question, but it just doesn't look likely at the moment. Maybe we'd actually have to get 2 midfielders left, like in the whole academy, to maybe even play that system. Maybe that's what needs to happen for us to go to that. But apart from that, I can't really see it. I'd like to though.
Yeah, I feel like the 4-2-3-1 is something that long term we need to transition to. We've talked in the past though about Liverpool set up defensively and offensively very differently, and transitioning into a 4-2-3-1 in game is maybe something Klopp potentially could look at. He talked after the game last night about his reasonings really for not going into the 4-2-3-1 system more. And he said, and I quote, "We have in the moment 5 senior midfielders. We have to start 3. We could start with 2 if we had more attackers, but we only have 3. Again, is that Klopp giving excuses because of...
Is Carvalho not a 10? Did I miss all of last season? Did I miss the championship season where he scored, I think, 11 goals and assisted 8 for Alexander Mitrovic and alike? Carvalho is a 10. Do I miss that?
You could argue.
Harvey Elliott, what?
Harvey Elliott could play in the 10 as well, you could argue. So
yeah, I mean, he was the most advanced midfielder yesterday. I know that he likes to drift out on the right and link up to the right, but he could still play in that 10 and still drift as well.
Does Klopp have to hold his hands up at some point and say, I'm making excuses now for the sake of making excuses to try and take the impact off the team? Is that FSG's fault for not backing him? We sold Mane, we brought in Nunez, we sold Minamino and Origi, and we didn't replace them. And now we're expected to bring in maybe youngsters. Bobby Clark was on the bench. Where do we go from here? Do you think the 4-2-3-1 is a reasonable transition, given the lack of midfielders and forwards, as Klopp's kind of alluded to?
Well, yeah, Klopp's been left out to dry, I think. Like, you look at our squad, it's not fantastic. I know injuries, but these players are injury prone though. Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Thiago even, all these players, before the season starts, that they're going to get injuries at some point. So you prepare for that. And then regards to the 4-2-3-1, to be honest, I think 3-4-3, I think that's probably maybe a better way to go, where you kind of have Gomez on the right-hand side of the defence, on the back three, and then Matip or Canate on the left-hand side, Van Dijk down the middle. You have Trent at the wing-back. I think that could work well, personally, with Thiago, maybe Fabinho in the pivot, or even play Fabinho in the back three. That could work. So, yeah, there's definitely loads of options to try. And yeah, there's unlimited really, where you could play Fabio Carvalho as part of the front four, or Harvey Elliott, similar. So yeah, really, it's just kind of finding out what is best. And yeah, I think if it is going like the way it's going at the minute, in the next few games, then Klopp has to kind of think, well, we have to change something up, because we can't carry on playing against these low block teams. I know Man United weren't a low block, but you saw it against Crystal Palace. And then even when teams go and press and attack us, we still can't cope then. Where before we were kind of all right when teams came out, because then we could just hit them on the counter deadly with Mo Salah. But yeah, now we just can't play against any team really, which is a big worry. So yeah, I hope Klopp can find a solution. I trust him to do that.
Yeah, there's so many different options, so many different varieties of formations and styles that we could go down tactically. It feels like, for me, from my perspective at this point, Klopp's just stubborn to a certain extent. That word's been branded a lot, Matty, in the media, about Klopp's stubbornness to bring in a midfielder, Klopp's stubbornness to change the way he plays. It's been talked about at the end of his Dortmund days of one of the reasons why he left. Do you see that? Do you agree with that point of view? Or is there other factors that you look at, other people to blame?
I don't know. I think Klopp is a bit stubborn, to be fair, and a bit too loyal to players that have maybe won stuff in the past, so he feels that loyalty. But that's his only downside, to be fair. Seeing comments of like FSG out and that, I'm not an FSG lover myself, but are FSG bad owners? Probably not, to be fair. I always see people say about like Trent, the best thing about him is that he's free. But then when we play other kids, it's like, oh, we need to go and buy someone for 50 million, something Dino or something. If Curtis Jones was called Jonesinho from Brazil, everyone would be like, oh my God, that Cancelo person from Brighton, everyone's creaming over him. You watch a minute clip of him, he does exactly what Curtis Jones does. Exactly the same. Now, everyone hates Jones, but they want to go and buy some kid for 50 mil. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just stupid. And I think there's a bigger issue going on at the club. Maybe it's the doctor going, maybe, I don't know, but just something doesn't seem right. Like, for Virgil van Dijk to play as bad as he has the past 3 games, why? Like, he's never been like that. I think they are just mentally fatigued, and we probably did need fresh legs. And I don't understand why. Like, I'm one of them who believes there should be 2 players for every position for competition. So if Andy Robertson's not playing well, Kostas should come in. Whether Klopp trusts Robbo or not, give Kostas a chance. If Kostas comes in and plays bad, then that's Robbo's lesson. You aren't undroppable. He comes back in and performs. We've seen it when Kostas got a run last time. Robbo come back better than ever. That's the only thing that I think I wouldn't agree on with Klopp, where he's loyal in that sense. People moaning about Firmino. Who else could we have played there yesterday? There's literally nobody else. Diaz, I think, is incredible. Salah's incredible. The midfield, needs addressing, but it's just, there's more to it with these injuries, because I can't remember any time Liverpool have had this many players injured on match week 3. I'm talking 12 injuries on the 3rd match week. Is that because Moxon's went? Is there something going on behind the scenes? I don't know, but I think there's a lot more to it, and I wouldn't say Klopp's to blame. I wouldn't say FSG are to blame. I don't know who's to blame, to be honest with you, but I think people who blame FSG are quite fickle, because I would love an owner like Manchester City who spends 200 million a year. Who wouldn't? Like FIFA. Everyone loves that. Do you know what I mean? I'd absolutely love it. But what FSG have done for this club, people need to remember who they followed on from. Do you know what I mean? They extended Anfield Road, extended the main stand. They only spend what they earn. We're never in trouble with FFP. Everyone's saying, look at Arsenal. Arsenal are currently getting watched by UEFA for FFP. I don't want that. I don't want to give all points deduction, because we would. Everyone hates Liverpool, remember. We probably would get that points deduction. But I'm not happy with FSG, but I'm not against FSG. I think what they've done in terms of behind the scenes at the club's fantastic. And I enjoy seeing academy players come through, to be fair. I would much rather have half of the team of talented academy players who you got for free than go and buy £50 million superstars who can maybe do the same job. Look at Harvey Elliott, for example. I know he's came from Fulham, but he's still ultimately like an academy-esque player. When he makes it, people are going to say, we got him on a tribunal for, what was it, 7 mil? People say, well, Trent, we got him for nothing. Look at Stevie. Like, players like that coming through, that's the whole point of investing in your academy. Because then when they get good, do you know what I mean? And Tommy, if you actually watch Jones and a 5-minute video on Jones, he can look as amazing as anyone in the world. Them little stupid clips. When we signed David and Gog, I thought we were getting the next Henry, and then when I seen him, Gog like more than 2-minute clip. That lad from Brighton's not the answer.
Academy players are great to see. Richie, is Jurgen putting too much pressure on some of these youngsters? We've talked about Harvey Elliott. We talked about Carvalho, Curtis Jones. You saw a lot of academy players on the bench. Is that, given the injuries, is that too much pressure for these guys to handle? Harvey Elliott seems to be living up to the challenge. Fabio Carvalho came on and made a real impact. Is that too much for them to handle, or do you think just throw them in the deep end and hope they swim?
I don't think there's enough pressure, if I'm honest, put on them. I think there's too much pressure put on Henderson and Milner and Fabinho at this point in that midfield. If we're just talking about the midfield, and Bobby Firmino too. Those players should not be playing 90 minutes week in, week out. They should not be doing that now. They've earned the right to have a cameo appearance every half hour and give 110%, give 90 minutes in that half hour. That's when Henderson was effective when he came on last time. That's what Milner was, coming in for the last, and marshal that midfield for the last 20 minutes. That's the roles they should be playing. There's not enough pressure on the young players, because if there was pressure, Harvey Elliott would come out and say, I feel like I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders, or you might see that in his performance, but he's not. Like you said, he's thriving. Fabio Carvalho, when he came on, and every time he has come on, he thrives. Like that volley that he struck in the previous game as well, if that goes in, boof, he's starting every week, isn't he? That's the chances that they should be getting. The youngsters should be getting these chances. We shouldn't have to be relying or putting pressure on the likes of Milner, Henderson, Fabinho, like I mentioned as well in that midfield. Even Thiago. Thiago is the wrong end now of 30. And I know that he's young in his 30s, but he's never been a Gini Wijnaldum, always, which is ironic because he's just broken his fibula. I hope he gets better soon. But Gini's ability, and the best thing about Gini was his availability. These players aren't that. Oxlade-Chamberlain is not the answer. Naby Keita is not the answer if you need someone every single week. So no, these players who are ironically playing too much, that's where the pressure's coming from. I don't think there's enough pressure on the youngsters at all. Bajcetic had a great preseason, not seen him since. Tyler Morton, perhaps he will benefit like Harvey Elliott did on a loan to the Championship. But again, he had 2 or 3 good games. I know that he sort of dipped off towards the end. But these youngsters who come in, they need this game time. Look what Trent did. He came in because there was no one else to play at right back. And no one else has played right back since. And yes, he got off to a shaky start too, if you remember. But since then, he's not looked back. Phil Foden, exactly the same. I remember listening to the radio and people saying, Phil Foden should be playing more. And Pep was like, no, he's not ready yet. No, he's not ready yet. Now look at him. He looks like he can play for any team in the world and deliver an 8 out of 10 at least every single game. That's not pressure on Phil Foden. That's because he's had those minutes. If we were asking now Bajcetic to go in and play every single week, then that is too much pressure because he hasn't had it before. Harvey Elliott is thriving. Fabio Carvalho, I believe, will thrive too. And you're not telling me that they don't want to play football and they don't want that pressure, because they absolutely do. So no, I don't think the pressure is on the youngsters at all. I think the pressure is on the players who are the veterans.
One thing before you carry on, I just want to brought this comment up that Casado is apparently able to perform regular in the Premier League level in a Potter side, while Jones struggles to break into the Liverpool side. I don't know how much Brighton you watch, to be honest with you, mate, but Casado actually only played about 6 times for Brighton last year. I know he was on loan for the first 6 months, but he was on the bench most of the time, didn't make it off the bench. All year last year for Brighton, he played 9 games. He also even featured for Brighton's under-21 side. Now, Curtis Jones, I know he's not a world beater, he's not a generational talent, he's not meant to be that. But the fact, if Curtis Jones can play 27 times in arguably the greatest Liverpool side our generation's seen, I don't like anyone sitting there saying he's a bad player, because he's not a bad player. He's not a world-class player. He's not a brilliant player. No one's ever saying that. But he's not a bad player. People make out that the lad's bad. He's still 21.
I like him, but surely Liverpool should be aiming for better than just not a bad player.
No, but you still need squad players. You still have to have squad players. Curtis Jones is never going to start for Liverpool week in, week out, and he's not meant to do that. You still need squad players. So why go and spend 50 million on someone who played games for the under-21s last year because he couldn't get into the Brighton side, when you've got someone there who's happy to sit on the bench and play as and when, and he's a Scouse lad with the passion.
End of
the clap at the end there as well.
Debate done. That's it. Curtis Jones is the best player in the world. I like it.
No, but his point is that he's not. His point is like he isn't that. But the likes of Caicedo has started well. He has, and there is hype now around him. I'm going to do a podcast later talking about Luka Sucic, who's had a great past 6 months in Austria too, and he should be someone that Liverpool's looking at as well. But the Jude Bellinghams of the world, that today apparently, 124 million now. No, sorry, 100. I put it in the chat. I think it's 124 million for Bellingham now. So it's going up and up and up. Liverpool aren't that. You do need a Curtis Jones who you think that you can develop, like a Harvey Elliott, like a Fabio Carvalho. These are players who Liverpool will try to develop because that's the Liverpool way. Liverpool aren't owned by oligarchs. We're not oil rich. So we have to have players like that. And I understand what Matty said. I also understand the frustration of everybody because we do need bodies in that midfield at the moment. But let me take it back to July, where Klopp said, someone outrightly asked, a journalist for once, outrightly asked Klopp a direct question and said, are you going to strengthen in midfield? And he listed the 9 players and he said, tell me why I need to strengthen in midfield. He said, where do I strengthen? Where do I need to strengthen? And he said that before the season even started. So Klopp in his head had this sorted already. Like Klopp already had it in his head. No, I don't need a midfielder. Now, injuries happen, but I also think it's a little bit naive to think that the likes of Thiago, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Keita, Henderson, Milner, even Milner, the Iron Man, the Ironborn, he's 36. Fabinho even has lots of soft tissue injuries. Jones doesn't stay fit for too long either. I think out of all of them, perhaps you would say that Elliott, who broke his ankle last year, is the only one who can regularly go on a run of games. So to walk into a season and say, yeah, I've got 9 midfielders, 8 of which are probably injury prone or susceptible to injury, is a little bit naive too. So I completely get everybody comment what they're saying, because yes, we need a midfielder, but there's not too many about, if I'm completely honest. The Barella talk, Barella doesn't want to come to Liverpool. He doesn't want to leave Italy. Bellingham, not happening this summer. Absolutely not. Maybe even now, not next summer. We are going to have to look at gems like Luka Sucic, like Lucas Paqueta, like Dominic Szoboszlai, if that's even realistic. That might even not be realistic for Liverpool right now. So we do need to look at those players who can come in and make a difference, but can also be nurtured, because we're not going to go and spend 70 million on a player like Casemiro just because we want him.
That's certainly true. That is certainly true. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this stream, please be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe. We appreciate all the support we get from you guys from the chat. So please make sure you also follow us on social media as well. But Owen, we've talked about the youngsters, the academy players. The Bournemouth game is a huge game now, given the start to the season. Harvey Elliott has looked fantastic. Carvalho has looked really bright when he came on in his spell against United. Is this their time? Is this the game where you throw them both in, stick Fabinho at DM and say, show us what you can do?
Yeah, I think you go with Fabinho in the defensive midfield. I think then probably play Elliott in the midfield and then play probably Carvalho in the forward line. because then Diaz and Salah are undroppable. But Firmino, he's not good enough anymore and shouldn't get a new contract. I don't see a reason why you go and give Roberto Firmino a new contract. I know we need the players in the squad, but we should be aiming for higher than that. We should be aiming higher for players which given contracts for sentiment, and that's what it would be, sentiment. Because face it, if Firmino joined 2 years ago, he's basically putting in Minamino-like performances now, pretty much, even worse potentially.
I think that's disrespectful on Minamino, to be honest. He did bits in the cups, didn't he?
Yeah, maybe even so. Yeah, like if he's not even performing to Minamino's standard, then that is a worry. That is a big worry. And yeah, you can say, oh, it's only a few games, but even last season we had the same problem. So, and I don't care if people say, oh, well, he might start playing well, and even if he does, then you've seen it with other players before. When their contract's about to run out, they start playing well. I think that's always a really bad sign, and you want to stay away from him. So I think best you could do is just part ways with Firmino. I think he's 30, 31 now. You've just got to aim for higher than that. And I don't know who you bring in as a like-for-like replacement. I really don't. Like a Joao Felix maybe is like kind of what Firmino was like when he was closer to his peak. Someone like that. But yeah, there's not really a like-for-like for Firmino in the market. I know we signed Darwin Núñez now, who is the out-and-out number 9 that we've always kind of dreamed of, always wanted. And I'm still really excited for what he's got to offer, because I think he will come good for us. But it's really annoying how we have to wait another 2 games before we can see him play again.
I am just really quick. I genuinely thought that Fabio Carvalho was a Firmino replacement. I genuinely thought that, and because there isn't anyone in the world who can play like Firmino and do what he did at his peak in that false 9 role, almost in that 10 role. So I thought that Carvalho would perhaps be nurtured to play a little bit deeper when Darwin Núñez doesn't play. But yeah, listen, Núñez is going to come back against Everton, isn't he? I think that's his first game back. There's a massive chance he gets sent off there as well. Yeah,
it's just his first game back, so I think I wouldn't put a Núñez in that derby.
Listen, I generally think he could get another red. Honestly,
man, yeah, just wow. I didn't realize that was his first game back. I did not realize that was his first game back.
You've got to start him, surely. You've got to.
Well, yeah, that's that from my perspective. You have to start Núñez for me.
Joss is back for that game. I think Joss will go straight into the team because it's consistent and he's going to score.
But you got to think Jota's been out of it for ages. Núñez has been through pre-season. He's been training. Even now, he's training with the squad week in, week out. Even though
you could argue, to be fair, that Núñez's red card is a good thing because he's got 3 weeks away from playing football to just train and learn the system and stuff on the training pitch. But what I was about Bobby, I agree, and it's so depressing. It's actually like really depressing watching the decline of Bobby. Like breaks me heart because
Sadio Mane's gone. Sadio's gone to a league now where he's going to bot it because especially the league just gets worse, doesn't it? Like Bayern are already like 14 goal difference ahead or something ridiculous. Like they've already got a plus 14 goal difference, and Sadio slotted in every single game. I'm telling you, if Bobby went to that league, he would also be scoring for Bayern Munich. And Mane is left as an absolute Liverpool legend, an absolute hero. So much to the point where we're saying, oh, we miss Sadio Mane. Liverpool miss Mane. I've seen it everywhere. Liverpool really miss Mane this season. If Bobby left this season, we'd probably be saying the same again because he'd be banging in France or perhaps in Italy or in Germany. Bobby would be banging too. But he has declined. And yeah, it's devastating because he was like one of my most favourite players. Nothing better than seeing Bobby score. But again, he shouldn't be playing 90 minutes after 90 minutes after 90 minutes either. I generally don't think he should be. Núñez came in to do that. Obviously, whatever happened. But again, too much pressure is now on Bobby to deliver these goals, which he's never really done. Bobby's never been that player to do that.
You've got to remember, though, with Firmino, he wasn't even playing well last season, where with Mane, he was actually playing well. In the Champions League final, he could have scored 2 goals. And if it weren't for Thibaut Courtois putting in an absolute game of his life. So I think Mane still was really, really good last season. Where did you get that from Bobby Firmino? Not quite. Well, nowhere near, in my opinion.
Something else that was odd, that I found odd, and it looks like there has been a tactical shift, and I don't know why it's happened or whether it's just coincidence. Luis Diaz has stopped running at players. He tends to now stop when he's got the ball and then assess and then run, which is no good because obviously your pace is slowed down. But the second thing that I noticed, well, when Bobby did drop into that 8, he should really be dropping into a 10 as a false 9. But that's no one was. Diaz and Salah weren't cutting in at all. They were still really wide. If you look at the heat map on Salah, he's stuck down that middle. He's stuck down that flank. He didn't cut in, and neither did Diaz. So whilst Bobby's dropping, that's why Milner was finding himself in that space, who is never going to do damage in the final third. That's never been Milner's game. And so I don't understand why, now that when Bobby plays, when he drops, I don't understand why our wingers, or inside forwards, whatever you want to call them, aren't cutting in. They're staying wide. And then you see Trent and Robbo underlapping, whereas they used to overlap. So there seems to be a bit of a system change there too. I don't know whether that's to beat a low block, maybe, like getting more bodies in the middle of midfield, perhaps, but it's not. It doesn't seem to be working. And again, if you're playing Bobby to create space and no one's running into that space, what's the point in playing him?
I don't think we had any other option really than Bobby in that game.
I agree, but that's his role. So why aren't they running into that space?
Yeah. The frustrating thing about Bobby is obviously you look at his decline and it's gutting to see. And it's got to the stage where if everybody's fit, Bobby doesn't play. Not a chance. Are we looking at maybe too much? Are we being too sentimental? Is that, as Liverpool fans and as Jurgen and the coaching staff, are they being too sentimental when they look at Bobby? I get the United game, we didn't have a choice, we had no forwards, but sentimentality is maybe the one thing that's potentially making us slide down and resulting in the performances we've got, because we're putting too much there's too much loyalty when it comes to players like Bobby, players like Henderson and Milner. Sentimentality is really a key issue. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, I agree, and it's quite depressing really, because a player like Bobby Firmino, when he was in his peak, he was like Dennis Bergkamp really when he was at Arsenal, a prime version of him. But now it's kind of like you're seeing it, and it's kind of making me dislike Bobby Firmino, and it's like it shouldn't get to this. We should move him on, and it should be a stage where you shouldn't, as a fan, you shouldn't have to go through this sort of not Bobby playing again. He should be gone by now, or should be on the verge of going. Shouldn't be playing so many minutes. So I think it's just from whoever's decision that is, whether that's Klopp or FSG, whoever you want to put it down to. I think it is a mistake, and he just shouldn't be playing. But as we've mentioned before, injuries for the 1,000th time. You don't have a choice in this game. And even though Fabio Carvalho, I think maybe going forward, you start him over him. But Bobby Firmino, it's just time to go, I'm afraid. And there's nothing really else to be said there. He's never been a player for goals, and you can see now his passing's gone off it. And if you're not getting good passing from Bobby Firmino, then what are you ultimately getting? You're not getting much, are you? So, it's quite sad, really.
It really is. One thing I think that irked a lot of Liverpool fans going into that game as well was the timing of Naby Keita's injury is another issue. The timing of it seemed very, very odd that the game that he arguably should have and could have started, Matty, he suddenly pops up with an injury. Klopp called it a crazy injury out of nowhere, out of nothing. Is that, for me, that's too convenient. The timing of that, especially given the rumours recently from the Sky Germany reporter, whose name I've forgotten completely, especially from the Sky Germany reporter coming out saying that he's not happy, he don't want to sign a new deal, he wants more play time. That injury is just a bit suspicious. Is this the first sign of maybe a player in this Liverpool squad who's potentially could upset the balance and upset the harmony within that squad?
Naby Keita's not injured, I don't think. It's just weird, very weird how he's kicked up a fuss saying he wants more playing time, which he's got a cheek, by the way. Get yourself fit if you want to be playing all the time. But to just instantly drop, it's very, very, very weird. I don't understand it. Because ultimately last night was Keita's time to shine. The midfield's on its arse. He comes in, has a good game. He starts against Bournemouth, has a good game. He could have made himself undroppable in this side, rather than kicking up a fuss with his agent saying, I want more money, I want this. Because what I genuinely think's happened is Liverpool were in discussions with Keita for a new deal. Chances are he's been offered the same terms or less money, given his injury record and stuff. So obviously he's not going to be happy, because he would be happy taking a pay cut. But he's got a cheek to say I should play him more when he literally can't stay fit. So I don't think he's injured, to be honest with you. I know I've seen reports today saying it could be a long injury. I don't know if that's just a matter of we're going to sell him, so we're not going to see him in the side again, because we've seen Klopp put players on the bench even when they're not fit and stuff, just to fill a bench space out. But he wasn't even there. Keita didn't even get on against Palace, if I'm correct. And I don't think he came. He wasn't in the Fulham team either, was he? And we only used 4 subs or 3 subs against Palace, and Naby still sat on the bench. So all that's leaked about him not being happy, I completely believe, and I do think he wants to go as well.
There's a question here about Tyler Morton. Sorry to interrupt there, but yeah, I watched him have a brief cameo for Blackburn against Reading last week, and Blackburn's midfield, was absolutely terrible. So if he's not getting in the Blackburn team, it's a little bit concerning at this stage, but it's only like his second game for the team, so I don't know whether there's too much to go off. But yeah, who knows about Tyler Morton? Do you guys think Tyler Morton could have been a good option this season?
I think he should have been. As much as Bajesic as a 6 as in pre-season has done well, Morton has just got that little bit more experience. You'd expect. I'm surprised we haven't done what we've done with Phillips and Vandenberg, which is hold off until we know the severity of the injuries on certain players. With Vandenberg and Phillips evidently aren't going out on loan or being sold yet, because of Joel Matip and because of Ibrahima Konate. I would have expected maybe the same thing with Tyler Morton, unless Klopp is just putting wholehearted faith in Bajesic if we need him, or other players, other youngsters from the bench. But I would have preferred him to stay from a selfish Liverpool perspective. From a Tyler Morton perspective, I think going out on loan was the right decision. Before we crack on, if you are enjoying this again, please like and subscribe. We are very, very, very close to 6,000 subscribers, so we would appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button and turn the bells on for notifications as well. We appreciate all the support and all the comments and interactions that you give us in the streams and on social media. So please make sure you drop us a follow on social media as well. Richie, Naby's injury we've talked about convenience. Is this the time? We've talked about it a lot, about selling him now. He's potentially a figure in the dressing room that doesn't want to be there. Do you just get rid now, irrespective of whether we bring in another midfielder, or do you only get rid if you bring in a midfielder? Do you try and force him to sign a new contract to protect his value? What do you do with Naby Keita here, given the frustrations from his perspective that has been sort of put out there in the media recently?
I was always give him a contract extension to hold his value more than anything else. But if Matty's saying it, they did try to do that on reduced terms. He's never really going to accept that. So for Liverpool, it's a really difficult situation to be in with Naby Keita, because if he's not going to sign a new contract, he's obviously going to leave on a free next year, and he's not going to feel valued this year. And the timing of the injury, maybe it is coincidental. I'd like to think, I'm quite optimistic. Yeah, it's just a coincidence. And it's not another Coutinho-esque ploy to force a move through. It would be very strange it would be very strange unless he knew he wasn't going to play, that he'd withdraw from the squad, because now would be the time to prove himself, as Matty said. So it'd be very strange now to pull himself out, especially if people are looking for midfielders or he does want to move, because now it could prove his worth to other clubs if he does want out. So it's a conundrum, because if he's unhappy, Klopp's not going to play him. Klopp doesn't play players who are unhappy. You know, he would want him out. And Naby was actually only injured for 8 games last season, which is mental. When you think about, you know, you tend to think of the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 5 games here and there when he's out. He's actually only out for 7 consistent games. That was from October to December. And then from March to April, he only missed 1. So he was actually only out for 8 games. He didn't actually have a lot of minutes. And as we said against Palace, he never came on. There's something not right there. Either Klopp doesn't trust him anymore. Klopp doesn't want to play him. Well, if that's the case, get rid of him, because there's no good in keeping an unhappy player. We saw that with, or we are seeing that with Ronaldo at Manchester United. So if it's down to me and Keita is not signing a new contract and he does want to go, it's tricky, because if you have a fit midfield, you say, okay, but Liverpool haven't got a fit midfield and they do need numbers. And maybe Naby can come on for 30 minutes every now and then to protect Thiago or to protect Elliott or Henderson or whoever it is playing in that midfield. I think the injuries have any chance of him actually leaving unless someone comes with a ridiculous bid, which I can't see them doing. You know, people saying he's going to move back to Germany. Leipzig are interested. Leipzig have got miles better midfielders than Naby Keita, and they're certainly not going to pay the 52 million we paid for him. I can't even see them paying half that. I'm looking on Transfer Market right now. His value is 22.5 million. You're crazy if you're paying 22.5 million for a Naby Keita right now. And Liverpool are not going to sell at cut prices. They would rather lose him on a free than sell at a cut price. And it's the same with Oxlade-Chamberlain. You know, I thought he should have been moved on at the start of the season. Absolutely should have been moved on at the start of the season. Probably would have been moved on at the start of the season had he not have had his hamstring injury. So it's a conundrum. Naby Keita's always been a conundrum for Liverpool. He's had moments of absolute brilliance, and he's had moments where you think, this is it. This is the Naby Keita we saw, that dynamic, progressive, creative, attacking midfielder. We finally got like a number 8 who can play as a number 8. Oh no, he's injured. You know, and that's the Naby Keita conundrum.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Naby's just one of those players who you're begging to be fit. You're begging to get a run of games because of the quality he can produce. And then when it doesn't happen, it's just for me, it eats away at you because of the impact he could have, because of that guy we signed from Leipzig is completely different to the guy we ended up getting, which is gutting. It is really, really gutting. But moving on slightly to the centre-backs. We've talked about the midfield a lot. We'll sum up just briefly with the centre-backs. Against United, they looked very poor. There's no denying that. They looked very, very poor. They didn't seem to talk. There was a lack of communication was a key issue for me. Owen, do you look at Gomez? Obviously, needs a consistent run of games to get back to his best. Van Dijk hasn't looked particularly good recently. Do you look, and given the big injuries, do you bring someone in on a short-term basis like we did with Kabak and like we did with potentially Ben Davies, who's now left the team? Do we bring someone in the centre-back role, or do we just, is there anybody else? I don't think, do you trust Nat Phillips and Vandenberg to come in and really challenge the centre-backs for their spaces? Because I don't think particularly Nat Phillips looked that good going forward in the game against Palace. Is what do you do with the centre-back conundrum and issues we currently have?
I wouldn't sign another centre-half. I don't think there's any real need in terms of Joel Matip. You know he's injury prone, and I said it this summer, I would have sold Joel Matip in the summer. 25 million, just sell him, move him on. We need to bring in another Konate sort of S mould, and then we can build for the future. But no, we'll wait until Matip gets 31, 32, and then we can't sell him for anything, and then we'll have to then go and reinvest. It's like, it's really frustrated that. But yeah, look, Joel Matip, he's a good player. So is Kanata. I think if Kanata was starting last night, I think we probably would have won. He's that good compared to Gomez, and Gomez now, he's just not the player he was because like you look at it and Joe Gomez. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that Joe Gomez. I had a thought just now, and it was really good, but it's totally gone.
No, it's fine.
I'm trying to think really hard because it was an important point as well about Joe Gomez. And yeah, his pace. That's what it was. His pace is totally gone now. And you see it in the high line that when they put Rashford, you say Rashford, Gomez, probably equal for pace. Rashford had him, and Matty's gone. He's gone. But yeah, I think Rashford actually had him, and Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. Defensively, they were liabilities. It's absolutely just terrible to watch. And yeah, I think Gomez, you say about the run of games as well with Gomez, but can you really have that run of games in terms of you see the quality around him? He's not going to have that opportunity. You said it with Ox. Well, we say it about Ox as well. He needs to run a game, but you see we've got there. It's like you just can't have that. You can't have that luxury in this team, unfortunately. If you're a worse team, then yeah, you're going to get run of games. But when you've got quality around, you can't just base it off, I'll be good. I'll put in a good performance when I've got 5-6 games under my belt. Well, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Unfortunately not. This is where we will end the stream. We thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing. We are very, very close to that 6,000 mark in terms of subscribers. We thank you for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed it, and of course make sure you follow the LFC Transfer Room on social media and the guys who joined us today, Matty, Richie, myself, and Owen. Thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow.